Should I just trust? No. I have yesterdays. Okay. No, not yet. I find it amusing now that, here we go. Okay. No. I've been on for 30 seconds, but there's only one person with me. So I don't even know if I can, they don't even tell me who it is. Someone, it's probably my wife. It is! Hi there. That's my one comment. I guess we're on. Okay. So earlier I was talking with who is going to be 16 tomorrow. Yay. Can you imagine? Think back to when you were 16. That was a long time ago. But we were just talking, and I was like, well, what should we do in meditation? And I started to tell her about the Torah portion. She says, that, basically it was like, that's very boring. But we started talking about when we do things wrong and feeling guilty about it. And we started talking about something that I think is a wonderful reflection, which is not allowing your regret over something you've done to take over, right? And when you look at it in terms of our Torah portion, Vayikra, from this week, is, the Israelites believed that sacrificing animals was making expiation for by sacrificing, you're freed of what you've done and you can go on with your life. But all too often, first of all, we don't have sacrifices. We don't have an instrument by which we can just kind of, do this sin that we did, whatever wrongdoings we did, they're just gone. Ours is a lot more subtle, right? I mean, either you have to go to a person if you've hurt them and try to get them to forgive you, and or you have to forgive yourself. And we thought it would be interesting to reflect on the idea that there's times when our own guilt, upon reflection, keeps us from moving forward in our lives. That there is something that we did that we can't get past. And because we can't get past it, our lives become stagnant. We become paralyzed spiritually, and we're not able to move forward. As opposed to what happens in our Torah portion, where you've done something wrong, you go to this place, you offer the sacrifice is burned, it all goes up to the sky, God smells it, it's a pleasing odor, and you're forgiven. And you don't need to think about it anymore. You don't need to have any regrets. It reminds me sometimes of my father has this great phrase that I've tried to live by. This doesn't have to do with when you've committed a transgression, but when you've made any decision. He always says, you make a decision, you stick to that decision. If later it turns out that the decision wasn't the right one, you make a different decision. But you don't be, oh, I made a decision, I started doing that, and now I regret making that decision, and then I feel bad about regretting that I made the decision, or I feel bad about the decision, and then I'm not able to make a second decision. Because all I'm doing is beating myself up over the first decision that I made, instead of just saying, okay, I made that decision, seemed like the right thing at the right time. It wasn't. We have to move on and make a new decision and go in a new direction. I used to not make fun of him for it, but I wasn't sure whether I really truly believed in that. But I do think it's helpful attitude to say, you make a decision and you stick to that decision. And because then you don't have the second guessing. we can always second guess. And the problem is you can say it on the outside, but once it goes on the inside and things start churning inside of our minds, then things start kind of getting out of hand. So the question I guess we would have to ask ourselves is, what takes place of the sacrifice? Is it just prayer? Is it that I need to go and do something for somebody else, kind of pay it forward, and by doing that I can cleanse myself of what I've done wrong? What is it that you do where you can leave things behind you, where you can kind of cleanse yourself, if that's at all possible? And if it's not possible to do that, then what do you do with all of your transgressions? What do you do with all the times you've messed up? What do you do with the things that you wish you hadn't done? Do they just stay inside of you and you're constantly living in a state of, why did I do that, or I shouldn't have done that? Because if all I'm thinking about is the stuff that I've done that I probably shouldn't have done, then I'm spending all my time doing that. I'm not even going to be able to go out and do anything else. Maybe that's the point, is if you're feeling so bad about what you've done, then you don't have to risk making any other decision. I know I'm referring to this a lot lately, but I'm in love with Ted Lasso, because that's the way he lives his life, right? He goes for it and goes for it 100%. And if it turns out not to be the right way to go, then you just pivot and you do something a little different. I'm not sure if I live that way. I think that there's some things that I kind of bring regret into, and there's other things where I just let it fall off my shoulders and I don't feel it at all. But I think for us, I think the most fascinating that once we started talking about this was, what is it today that I can do that isn't a sacrifice but serves that same purpose of allowing us to kind of clean ourselves out? Now, one might say that the answer is going to be meditation, but I think what meditation and mindfulness and noticing does is it can point up the fact that we have been regretting something, or we do feel bad about something. And the mindfulness and the meditation is about noticing and about clearing ourselves out a bit so that we can come at our lives with a better perspective. So if it's going to help in any way, it might help us when we come back out of it and we start reflecting on this idea, what it is that I do, or what it is that you do to clear yourself of the actions you've done that you may have some issue with. So let's go to our time of quietude, our time of stillness. Tonight we ask at the end for feelings of joy and wholeness, or to feel whole, to feel joy, and move ourselves towards Shabbat and towards the weekend. So let's just go to our breathing and try to kind of center ourselves. What kind of breath do you need today? Do you need a thick one? Do you need a small one? Do you need breaths that are close? Do you need breaths that fill you up? This is my daily yawn before we begin this. Okay. Remember, just regular breathing. Just allowing everything to be as it is for now. So we're just concentrating on feeling our heartbeat and feeling our breath and feeling what's going on inside of our bodies right now. Is there tension somewhere? Does your breath fill? I think it was the first time.
Wait, what? You fell asleep?
Where my mind just kind of went out there, and I'm really sorry about that. But fullness. I'm so sorry about that. There was a first time